Yeah. Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ and Friends. Today is the fourth Monday of the month, which means it's time for Goodbye Lupus with Dr. Brooke Goldner. And today she's going to talk about U.S. government calling for plant-based diets. Please welcome her back to the show. How are you, Dr. Goldner?
I am doing well. It's good to see you.
Fantastic. Before we get into the topic of the day, I had asked you last month, because this is a few days before Halloween, how you have children and how you navigate this particular holiday where it is known for sabotaging a lot of people's best health efforts with the treats.
Well, see, Halloween's my favorite holiday. I don't know if you've ever noticed that that's like our favorite family picture time of the year is Halloween. We go all out. So what we love about Halloween and what we emphasize is the fun and creativity side of costumes. And we like to recreate some of our favorite characters. We actually did our photo shoot for this year. I put out a hint on my Facebook and Instagram. Nobody's guessed it yet. But we put a lot into that. We each take turns choosing the theme of the year. And so that becomes our family picture for the year. So like last year it was Star Trek, Strange New Worlds. Before that it was Cobra Kai. We've done Scooby-Doo, and we go all out on our pictures. Have you seen them, Chef?
I have. You post them and they're wonderful.
Yeah. So we have a lot of fun with that. I wonder if I can pull it up for you. So we really enjoy doing that as a family and coming up with fun ideas for that. So that's our big focus. Of course, we have definitely gone through the whole, there's trick-or-treating and all that. And I think that the rules are kind of different, at least in my book. How tough I am on people is different depending on what's going on in terms of the health of the family. Right. So if somebody has, a healthy family with not much going on that's harming their health, then I'm not too worried about if the kid has like a piece of candy or two. Right. If somebody's sick, that could literally undo their health goals. So I tend to be different. I'm actually a lot more easygoing than I know a lot of the folks you have on that are very all or nothing. I wanted to share. Let me see if I can share. I'll share one of them. So this was. All right, I have to send a request to share.
Oh, wait. Let me just enable it. Where is there you go. And yeah, you should be able to share now.
Okay, cool. So I'll show you, like, this is from my Facebook page. Let me see. There's
oh my God, that's amazing.
So that was so that's Karate Kid. There's my husband as Johnny. There's Solomon. He can't really do that kick. We used a little bit of computer editing, everything. Even my mom got involved. She gets in there sometimes. So we really go all out on this. That's one of our favorite things to do. So for my family specifically, what I've always done is, okay, if you want to go on the hunt and gather with your friends for Halloween, that's fine. The fun part for them really was the running around with their friends and collecting. And then what they do when they came home is they take everything that's not vegan out, because even when they're not being healthy, they're still always vegan. And then of the vegan things, they might have one or two pieces of candy, which is like a candy cane, or not a candy cane, that's what, but like a lollipop or something. And then they give the rest to me and forget about it, because they're not candy eaters. And it was actually pretty funny how quickly they would just forget about it and not care about it. We'd pour the rest out into the trash, or but it's not our thing. What I usually give out for Halloween is glow sticks and tattoos, which kids love too. So I'll get like the glow stick necklaces and wristbands and stuff like that. And so I have a big box and bag of them. And so people will come by and just grab them, and they love them. So there's ways that you can do that. So especially for people who are food addicts that know, if I buy candy to give out, there's going to be a significant amount that goes into my face, then not getting the candy is the best thing you can do. And your house won't get egged as long as you have something to give the kids. So like I said, glow sticks and little tattoos, temporary tattoos and stuff have always been popular. The kids always love them. I've never had any complaints doing stuff like that. And again, if you are someone who's sick, you should not eat any stuff that's unhealthy. If somebody's healthy and they eat a lollipop, they're not going to suddenly lose their health, So there's a difference between health maintenance and trying to be well. But yes, I don't like having that stuff in my house. And I prefer not to be someone who's a dealer either. So that's been what I've always chosen, is to just get the kids something. I'm not going to go the raisins route. Everyone hates the raisins house, but the glow sticks, they don't mind.
The raisin house. I heard about somebody who's they were a dentist and they gave out toothbrushes, and that
no one likes that either. Yeah, they don't like that either. We're in Texas, so it's interesting. Sometimes my kids will get like something in their box, and it's like, like a prayer or something.
Oh my goodness.
The kids are looking for candy, but I'm telling you, if you give them something cool like glow sticks, and I go on Amazon and you can buy like packs of 200 glow sticks, and they're not any more expensive than buying the big things of candy, and they're cool. If you don't give them all out, you can still use them at parties, other things. So that's usually what I end up doing. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, good, very good. Yeah, but again, you talked about this before. People have to know themselves. If a piece of candy is going to send them to the deep end, it's not a good idea. But if there's somebody that can, treat treats as treats, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, my mom used to always buy her favorite candy for Halloween when I was a kid, and then she'd be working on it before Halloween. You got to know yourself and be like, nope, I'm not gonna do that. And I feel better not giving that stuff away. I mean, that's why even sometimes my son's friends, I remember one time we were in Hawaii. We were so lucky to be in Hawaii, and it was Halloween. We were celebrating our 10-year anniversary. And in Maui, they have this huge event with like a parade where all the kids can march in the parade and all this stuff. And then people throw candy at them and everything. And my son Solomon had this giant basket of candy, and he just picked out like a lollipop or whatever. And then he went over to the trash can and just dumped the rest in. And this other kid witnessed him doing it. And this kid's face, it could have become a meme. If someone could have seen his face, his mouth was open and his eyes were in horror, like, what? And it was like the big chocolate bars and stuff. And he just threw it all in the trash and just get it. But to him, the fun was the receiving it. That was so fun. Okay, let me throw this away. So being raised like that kind of helps with it. I didn't have to deal with like crying or issues. So I like to let them participate in the fun. This year, Solomon's 15. So I asked him if he's going out. He goes, nah, it's lame now. Yeah, I don't feel like it. So instead, we took him to his first haunted house, which was really fun.
That is really fun. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a good time, and we went with one of his friends, and we're extra embarrassing, but we had a good time. So yeah, there's other ways to enjoy it, but yeah, I think you just have to have the conversation too. But we don't even give the bad stuff, because his friends have even asked, like, can't you just give me all your chocolate? And if you're like, I love you too much, why would I give you something I know is bad for you? If your own parents say it's okay, it's one thing, but I'm not giving it to you. I'd rather throw it away. And so, yeah, we've just accepted being the weird ones, and his friends love and accept him that way too,
That's funny. Or, I know people used to sometimes collect it and send it to like the military troops. And I'm thinking like, well, why do we want to poison them as well,
Exactly. It's like, I'd rather get rid of it than harm someone else with it. It's like, oh, I quit smoking. Do you want to have my packs of cigarettes?
That is funny. I'd rather just get money,
Yeah, I know. If they were throwing money, I'd be trick-or-treating, right? Why not? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Making it rain.
That is funny. Well, you've chosen an interesting topic today, Dr. Goldner, the U.S. government calling for plant-based foods.
Well, yeah.
Where did you hear that? Where is this?
I'm always trying to keep my finger on the pulse of what's going on. And when you always message me in advance, what are you going to talk about Monday? And I go, I don't know. What are we going to talk about? And so at the moment you message me, I've been working on an educational video that I haven't made yet. So you're actually getting a preview of me working through this. An educational video about what progress have been made in the US government in terms of nutrition. Because what I get from my folks, and I'm guessing you get it from your followers too, Chef, is people do not have any faith that things are going to get better in our government, in our country. And I understand it. I am one that I am a very hopeful person by nature. And I also have seen the changes. I know you have too, Chef AJ. The way it was even 10, 15 years ago, no one even knew what vegan was. Plant-based wasn't a thing. even being vegetarian was weird. There was no celebrities who did it. You couldn't find anything at restaurants. There was no now there's a whole thing where we have to actually warn people not to eat too much vegan products because it's become so popular, right? That, wait a minute, that's not healthy, right? So it has changed dramatically, where even cool people are vegan now. Like when Beyonce was touring through Houston, my friend who's a raw vegan was hired to make all her meals, because apparently Beyonce eats raw vegan when she's on tour because it gives her the most energy. So we were not the cool kids before. But I feel like if we're doing what Beyonce does, we now are part of the cool club. It has become cool. It has become well known and well understood in ways that it wasn't before. And I see that as progress. When I first introduced this stuff, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, people just pushed back how crazy it sounded. And it's just not crazy anymore, right? Now there's documentaries on Netflix about it. So there's movement in the public. And so I had made a video excitedly. People commented on my excitement and enthusiasm. It's just that's my baseline is excited. Okay, I was just born this way. My enthusiasm, because there was a U.S. House of Representatives resolution that was passed urging medical training programs to increase nutrition education to, quote, ensure competency in nutrition for physicians and other health professionals, end quote. And this expert panel reviewed over 500 research articles in nutrition and health and reached an agreement that this must be included as part of medical education. And they reached this consensus that medical students and doctors should be tested for nutritional competency for licensing and board certification. So I was excited, right? Now, on top of that, JAMA just released a statement in response to that U.S. House of Representatives resolution. So JAMA is a medical journal, American Medical Journal. And in that, they actually created a list of 36 different areas of competency that doctors should be evaluated in for licensing and board certification exam. 36 areas. And they agreed that institutions should report on their teaching relating to nutrition competencies. Surveys should be used to assess students in their competency and competence in this area. They also wanted competency in the impact of food choices and environment, like people who live in food deserts and other areas, how we can help people all have this. So I was, again, very excited. And what I did was I looked at what articles they were reading when they made this recommendation, right? Because the first thing that people said to me in response to this exciting news was a lot of negative crap that I'm sure this is all going to be just taken over by the Meat and Dairy Association, processed food. It's not going to be plant-based. But the first article on the list of the 500 they looked at was the twin study. You know the twin study, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the twin study, if you haven't heard it, which they actually made a movie about it that's on Netflix, was they said, okay, a lot of the pushback on plant-based or any kind of nutrition research is that maybe it's just like the people were different. It's genetic differences. So they said, fine, what if we test the difference in two genetically identical people? It's hard to get twins, all right? There's not as many twins as there are genetically unique people. But in the twin study, they put them either on a completely vegan diet. I won't even say plant-based because they let them eat like vegan meats and stuff. A vegan diet with a lot of fruits and vegetables, or what looked more like a paleo diet. It was cuts of, healthier, I'll put it in quotes because there's no healthy meat, but healthier versions of meat than like what most people eat, and lots of fruits and vegetables also. So they were both getting lots of fruits and vegetables, and one was completely vegan and one's still getting meat. And what they found is in every area, the vegan twin did better. Weight loss, their blood sugars normalized, their cholesterol went down, and it was really dramatic. And another video I came out with recently, another group studied the impact on aging, and the ones that were vegan, the vegan twins ended up younger genetically than the non-vegan twin. Even in the short period of time they were on those two diets, one aged and the other aged in reverse. So it was a really cool study showing the power of just eating plant-based or vegan in two genetically identical individuals. And that was the very first study listed under the JAMA article saying that doctors should be competent in nutrition. So that is very hopeful, right? That is good news that they're not just making this recommendation and then saying, now let's see what the meat and dairy industry says, which is kind of what it's like when you go to the US Dietary Guidelines Committee. I've testified for them 3 times now. And every time I testify, I get 2 minutes. And I can say a lot in 2 minutes, as you know. You give me a microphone, I can give a lot in 2 minutes. But before and after me is the sugar company coming on, and the meat, and even processed meat people saying how much processed meat you should eat. That is literally a carcinogen. You know, so even the World Health Organization says that's in the same category as carcinogen as cigarettes and asbestos. And they're recommending to the US dietary guidelines how much bologna and hot dogs people should eat. So the US dietary guidelines, it's been hard to make any segue movement there, but I'm still going to keep doing it. But this is something different. So I was very excited about that. And so when the feedback I got for that excited video was a lot of negativity that the government's never going to come around and it's all going to be sold out to industry, inspired me to find out what is the government doing right now in the US in terms of nutrition and health for the American public. Are they still being completely overrun by the industries? Or are we making movement towards plant-based? And so that is how I got to this topic. I happened to be working on it when you texted me saying, what are you going to tell my audience? So I'm just collecting information right now. I'm going to make it into a much more concise video. But the information is really uplifting, Chef AJ and all of the audience watching. It's really good. All right. So if you want, you want me to just tell you what I've been coming up with?
Absolutely. Don't keep us in suspense.
This is, there's the suspense. We're building. All right. So first, listen, the meat problem was fueled by the government. All right. That's a fact. Right. The meat and dairy industries are powerful forces in Washington, and they have long benefited from a lot of subsidies, R&D programs, government grants. They receive about 800 times more public funding than alternative plant protein sector from 2014 to 2020, despite the greater costs they exert on the environment and human health, right? 800 times more. So this is a government problem, right? There are ways to eat plant proteins, right? Which come from all plants, by the way. You don't need to specify, where it's better for health and it's better for the environment and it's cheaper. But the government funding has always been focused on these, industries. So, meat, dairy are very, and then, soy too, but they're using the soy to feed the meat and dairy mostly. So, the cows. So, so this is true. And America has a highly industrialized meat and dairy industry, and it's benefited from over a century of government support, which has resulted in factory farming. So this is also true. I do not have blinders on to this. This is a major problem that, and the major barrier for folks like us that are trying to teach the public is all the government funding has been going in creating this factory farming system that we have. It is lucrative to be in that business because of the subsidies and the government funding. Even so much so that as people have become smarter to, for example, how bad dairy is, because even the paleo people are anti-dairy. So dairy has taken a hit. Since the government funds subsidies for dairy, they have to buy up whatever dairy is left over. So our taxes are paying for the government to pay the dairy farmers. That hurts. And what they do with the extra dairy is they funnel it into the schools. So lots of schools, you can get free milk with your school. My son's school has that. If you get milk, you can have it for free. Even though they do have a chef that makes him plant-based meals every day, it's so nice. He can ask for vegan and they'll make him something. But still, if he chooses milk, he'll get it for free. He doesn't. He drinks his water. But that's what the problem has been. So it is government-backed and funded, and it's created this problem. And there's also pressure to keep it going, because then the money goes into the taking up stuff like dairy, then that pushes into the schools. I had a friend who was a public school teacher, a health teacher, and she told me on a regular basis she would get free lectures that she could give her class all about the benefits of dairy. And she said all of the other health teachers would use it because it's a day where you don't have to do lesson planning. You just give out the handouts and talk about the benefits of dairy, right? So that's a problem. We have to acknowledge that's a problem. But there is pushback now. So I just mentioned that big resolution now demanding that medical students and healthcare providers be educated in nutrition. So the question is, was the US government, are those people who push that legislation, are they people who are actually aware of the benefits of plant-based eating, or are they not? So I looked into the people who pushed that bill. And that's what my research has been so far. I've got like a documentary here, Chef AJ. All right.
Oh
so there's certain folks who are on it. Representative Jamie Raskin, amazing guy. Whatever your political leanings, this is an amazing guy. He has been trying to help the American people for a long time. This poor man, his son committed suicide a couple days before he then went to certify the election of 2020 and then had to go through the whole like terrified attack, hiding in the Congress, right? So trauma on top of trauma, which then led to him getting cancer. And he still worked through the cancer. And here he is working on trying to find ways to bring more plant-based eating to government and people. Like the man is, like I said, whatever political leaning you have, this man is a workaholic trying to do stuff for the people. Senator Cory Booker, an out vegan senator. He has said that when he when he's part of the Black Caucus and when it's his turn, they take turns buying food for the caucus when they have meetings. When he does it, he buys all vegan and he does videos, all of them eating vegan food and asking, is it good? Is it good? Is it good? So he's part of it. U.S. Representative James McGovern, Representative Julia Brownlee. So there's a whole, and there's more of them that are all a part of this, right? So here's some of the stuff I found. So U.S. Representative James McGovern passed the Plant Act, which provides a blueprint for maintaining America's leadership in plant-based food production while empowering farmers in rural communities and producing delicious, affordable food options for all Americans. The Plant Act will help us win the future of food. That's a quote from McGovern. Plant-based foods are already creating new opportunities for farmers across the country and exciting new options for consumers. And this legislation will be a game changer by putting farmers and their communities front and center as we grow the greatest plant-based sector in the world. We can create countless good jobs while showing the world what makes American agriculture so strong. Now is the time to embrace the enormous potential that plant-based foods have to strengthen our economy and our food system. That's good. The Plant Act. I can get behind the Plant Act, all right? And there's a whole thing. That's my short version of it, right? Also, we have Representative Julia Brownlee. She introduced two bills. One is the Climate Agricultural Conservation Practices Act, and the other is the Conservation for Agricultural Leased Land, the CALL Act. And these are both to help agricultural producers and farmers address the impacts of climate change, which specifically addresses the problem with the meat industry, because the meat industry is driving pollution, whether it's, because of the gas, the methane gas of the cows, whether it's the fact that the fecal runoff from factory farms have created dead zones in bodies of water where no animals or plants can survive because there is so much feces polluting it. So air pollution, ground pollution, it's the number one driver of deforestation, the lungs of the planet. Our trees are being removed to create grazing lands. So in order to conserve the climate, a lot of people are becoming plant-based because of their beliefs and desire to save the planet. They're not concerned about the animals or human health. We'll take everybody. We'll take everybody who's pushing, right? But inclusion of part of her act is, so her bill passed something called the Critical Investments in Alternative Protein Research in the America Competes Act. An inclusion in her legislation to expand research in alternative protein sources of the U.S. Department of Agriculture and move our country towards a more sustainable food system. Great. Over 24 U.S. representatives have urged the Bureau of Prisons to offer more plant-based meat options to inmates in federal prisons because there's better health outcomes for the inmates, and that means lower costs for prisons. Representatives cited a 216 government survey that found 33% of federal prisoners have chronic health conditions, and consuming meals focused on plant-based foods offers nutritional and health benefits with less saturated fat and sodium than animal products and higher in dietary fiber, and do not contribute to non-communicable diseases like heart disease and type 2 diabetes. This is from the lawmakers. So the lawmakers are writing into the legislation that they already know that eating plant-based is better for human health. They are aware of it, right? Because that's what I'm reading when I'm looking through this, is when they're suggesting these changes, what do they know? So they're saying vegan meals cost less, but they're also saying that they will cause less type 2 diabetes and heart disease. This is coming from the lawmakers. And again, that was from over 24 US representatives who made this, this declaration asking for the Bureau of Prisons to offer plant-based meals. And one of the examples they gave for trying to make this change in the prison systems was how successful New York City has been, because they changed it. New York City public hospitals all must primarily offer plant-based meals to patients. Private hospitals can do what they want, but the public hospitals are plant-based unless someone makes a special request otherwise. And they cited that as part of their evidence, saying that they saw a cost savings of 59% per tray by switching to plant-based, 59% savings in public hospital, and satisfaction rates of patients on their diets over 90%. So they're saving money, almost 60% saving per tray, and over 90% of people are saying they liked their food. So all of that was part of an initiative that was just passed for recommendations for US prisons. And another one that I found, so I'm looking at, like I said, this is my research I'm reading. I haven't even put it all together. Government agencies are now asking for more plant-based options. So 2022, the Biden administration released a proposal to end hunger by 2030 and help consumers build healthier diets. It's called the National Strategy of Hunger, Nutrition, and Health, and it pledges to increase the availability of plant-based and vegetarian options at federal facilities. More than 30 members of Congress and a broad coalition of chefs, farm, food, public health, and animal welfare and environmental groups have urged the administration to make plant-based or vegetarian option available everywhere the federal government serves a meal. The federal government spends billions of dollars providing nearly 500,000 meals annually to visitors, workers, inmates, and patients. So these modest changes in meal patterns could produce significant health benefits. So this is literally just the stuff I've found so far. But to me, what I'm seeing is a very important theme, whether these bills are about the health of prison inmates, the health of government workers, the health of the planet. All of them are saying in somewhere in their bills that the way to get those outcomes is by switching to plant-based eating, as well as encouraging farmers and making it empowering farmers to be a part of supplying these plant-based alternatives to meat-based diets so that we can get those outcomes. So to me, this is good. Now, how long will it take for all of this to come into fruition? And will it be fast enough to save someone right now who's sick, who hasn't been reading all this research? It's not fast enough for them. But I think all of this is actually pretty profoundly positive. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think that one of the most interesting things of what you said is that their incentive is based financially more than on the health of the population. That when
Money
they
talks.
when they figure it out, it's actually cheaper, then they want to do it.
Yeah, well, for all the folks who are like, yeah, but what about my burger? This and that. 59% savings per tray. Oh, well, that's a lot of money, right? And the thing is, I've always said, when you do the right thing, it's right for everyone. I just have found that to be true. The right thing is always the right thing. It's not like, oh, this is the right thing for Chef AJ, but it's going to make somebody else suffer. No. So the right thing for human health is the right thing for the planet, is the right thing for the animals, is the right thing fiscally, financially. It's the right thing for the inmates. It's the right thing. It's just the right thing. It's the right thing. And it's being acknowledged. So it's not just that this one House of Representatives resolution wanted doctors to become trained in nutrition. The reason behind it is all this other stuff, that they have scientists that are teaching them what's going on, and both fiscally, health-wise, climate-wise, they know the truth. And the truth is that the meat-based industries are not just killing budgets, but they're killing people, they're killing the planet, they're killing animals. None of that's necessary. And they're aware of it. I mean, literally, that one act is called the Plant Act. So I'm actually very happy about this. I feel like maybe in my lifetime, I will be able to see more government work, more government subsidies and all that stuff in that direction. And, I always like to use the example of the tobacco industry when people get frustrated. I pulled up today, just to compare it, a timeline of how long it took for tobacco to finally be put in the corner, right? Used to be every cool person on TV was smoking. You could remember planes in the 80s full of smoke, how awful that was.
What was so funny is that they had the non-smoking section right next to you.
You were smoking too. Yeah.
It made absolutely no sense.
Oh my God. And do you ever go to a restaurant where you wanted the non-smoking section, but it was full, and then you had to eat in the smoking section, and it was disgusting, the smell, right? So I always think that's what it's like right now with the meat, and dairy and all that stuff. It's everywhere, but we have the awareness. So with the meat industry, in 1954 was the first time we had an article published in the British Medical Journal that confirmed the link between smoking and lung cancer. 1954. In the 50s, everyone was smoking. The ads were all doctors saying this is the best cigarette for your asthma, right? That everybody was smoking. And yet we already had a medical journal publishing that link, right? And it continued to happen. And in 61, the American Lung Association urged President Kennedy to try to establish some kind of commission to address the problem, right? And that's when the Surgeon General finally started looking into it, right? And it wasn't until 66, 12 years later, where there was a warning finally put that cigarette smoking might be hazardous to your health. Not very exciting, but it was something, right? But it took years, because that was in 66, but in 68 when Virginia Slims came out with the "You've Come a Long Way, Baby," to get women to start smoking, right? They already knew it was causing cancer, and yet the ads were flying, right? And so it took a while. In 86, finally in 86, the Surgeon General came out with the consequences of involuntary smoking, which also acknowledged the harmful effects of secondhand smoke. That's when my parents quit. My parents were smokers. They were willing to deal with potential hazardous consequences, but when the secondhand smoke thing came out, they quit for me, right? So that was something. But still, smoking in restaurants, smoking on planes, all of that, right? It wasn't until 87 that Congress prohibited smoking on domestic flights of less than 2 hours. More than 2 hours you could smoke. 87. So we're talking about 34 years later, right? And, and it still continued on. I mean, that's when we started to see Joe Camel came out in 87, right? And so it wasn't until 88 when they put the tax on cigarettes for 25 cents. And then, I mean, it still kept going on. Finally, in 89, Congress prohibited smoking on domestic airlines fully. We still had, even after the Surgeon General came out in 86 saying secondhand smoke is bad for us, it wasn't until 89 that they said, fine, maybe we shouldn't be forced to smoke other people's secondhand smoke on flights. So it takes a long time. I mean, it was just in 94, 7 tobacco companies were still testifying to Congress that nicotine's not addictive. That was 1994, right? So, I mean, it's just, so finally in 95, the US Food and Drug Administration declared nicotine a drug. 95, right? 98, California's the first state to eliminate smoking in bars. All right, and so that's what I'm saying. It takes a while. So here we are now, farther along, we scroll all the way up to the 2020s, and we're still dealing with this. We're still dealing with this, right? But at least now we have, an understanding in the public that most people who, at least people who still smoke, and we don't see it as much now, they're vaping, which causes a whole other problem, that everyone can pretty much agree it's bad. And most people don't do it, right? But it took decades. And I mean, we're coming on, 2024, still dealing with regulations around this, when in 1954, we knew it caused cancer. So you have to be patient is what I'm saying. And that's tough when you are a patient, and I get it. Lived as a patient for 12 years of my life before I got rid of lupus, which, hey, I didn't get to celebrate with you. So October 8th was my wedding anniversary, 19 years, but also my anniversary of my first negative lab test for lupus. So 19 years lupus free, no relapse ever. So I'm celebrating that this year. But, having lived as a patient, we want all this front and center. And so I really think that this was the right move now for Congress. Not only are they asking for more plant-based farming, more initiatives to help with farmers, more initiatives to help with plant-based meals, but they need to make sure doctors know what they know. And that's been the problem, right? There's those of us who are on top of this. All I do is help people reverse disease with supermarket foods. That's literally morning to night, unless I get a break to hang out with you. That's all I'm doing. But for a lot of doctors, they still don't know any of this. They're so busy being forced to see patients every 10 to 15 minutes because that's all the drug or the the insurance companies will pay them for, right? They don't have time to sit and read all this stuff. So, it's really important. If they're required to do it for their license, they'll do it. If they're not required, they'll do it only if it is interesting to them, or for a lot of doctors, they do it when they get sick. I am really excited that I published a case series in Frontiers magazine, which is one of the most highly downloaded medical journals. And I did that. It took years to get them to take a publication because mainstream journals don't publish plant-based case research. It's very hard to publish. When people say, why don't publish more? It's really hard. It's easy if I'm willing to publish in some journal no one will read, but I'm not trying to do that. If I'm publishing, I want doctors to read it. And so my journal article has actually been shown to be read more than 95% of all other articles. So it's being read and downloaded more than 95% of the other articles. It's actually really incredible how popular it's been. And the case series was a long-term case series looking at how I reversed lupus and Sjogren's in a group of women, and all of them have remained symptom-free off all medications for years, one of them 8 years now. And here, I'll show it to you really quick. So I am trying to reach doctors directly. And like I said, this is one of the most downloaded ones. And you can see here, see what it says this, in the top 5% of all research outputs, this one article. So it's been really exciting to see that not only are people reading it, but a lot of them are. It's been picked up by news outlets and citations already, but it's outperforming by a long shot. And so that's exciting because this is a mainstream journal that doctors actually read. But again, still, if it becomes a government mandate, that will change things. And again, I think the government mandate will be pushing towards the plant-based education just based off of all of this other information that I just presented to you. They are heading in that direction. Will there be pushback from industry? I am 1,000% sure of it. I am 1,000% sure that they will push back if doctors are being taught to tell their patients to be plant-based. Oh yeah, but the truth always wins. The cigarette industry is very powerful. Tobacco industry is powerful. They have a lot of money and they have pushed hard. They still are, but yet the truth has won out. And I believe in this case, it will as well.
Well, fantastic. I cannot wait till you can officially announce that this has happened.
We will put our green smoothies into champagne glasses and we will toast to it. And it's on its way. Like I said, the fact that JAMA picked it up and said, oh, they're urging doctors to know this, let us create the guidelines. And they created all 36 different areas that they want people to be educated in. And if they need someone to do any educating, I will raise my hand. Let me in. I will happily do it. I have trained medical students, but so far, the different medical schools that have invited me, it's been the students that invite me, which has been really interesting. The students invite me because they form their own clubs and they invite the teachers they want because it's not part of their general curriculum. But if it becomes part of the curriculum, I know Dr. Clapper, he's awesome. He travels all around to different med schools to give his lecture on the impact of plant-based eating and disease. But if it's required, if you need to know it for your boards, that's when they're all going to know it. And that will change everything. That will change everything. Like I just think about now when I was 16 and I had to go into that doctor's office and be told that I might have 6 months to live because my kidneys were shutting down and I had this incurable disease and they had to give me experimental chemotherapy to save my life. They gave me pills to shut down puberty to protect me from getting ovarian cancer from the chemo, 60 milligrams of prednisone a day for years. And it saved my life, thank goodness, or I wouldn't be chatting right now. But it was excruciating. And if there's a possibility that some 16-year-old girl walks into her doctor's office with the same diagnosis and her doctor says, you have this disease. Let me give you these guidelines. This is what hyper-nourishment is. Here's the green smoothie recipe. We're going to get your kidneys back online, and this will be over with in a couple months, and you'll go back to your life. All of the things I'd ever been through will have been worth it for that outcome, you know? So I see it in my mind. I believe in that future.
What kind of pushback do you expect from the industry? Like, you think they'll all band together and fight this with lawyers, for example?
Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah. I mean, you know, Tcom Campbell has talked about this, right? That, you know, so I remember reading that he was on a government committee I think it was for US dietary guidelines, many, like decades and decades ago. He's an elderly man now, but I think it was like 40 years ago when he was doing his original research where he discovered that dairy could cause cancer or turn on cancer genes, right? And he was the only one to vote against dairy being on the recommended foods because he's like, dairy is cancer causing. Look at my research. And then he got kicked off the committee. And then when he looked, he found out all of them were being paid by the dairy industry to do research. So, you know, so that's one thing. Number two, I learned that when they first came out with the dietary guidelines, they were different. They didn't have all of the meat and dairy, as much of those things. It had more of an emphasis on fresh foods. And then the scientists came up with that. And then the lawyers from the meat and dairy industry sued the dietary guidelines. And that's how they settled and made an agreement. Okay, we'll add some of that back. So the lawyers determined what humans are told to eat in our country rather than the scientists. So even though it wouldn't have been the diet that maybe you or I would have recommended, it still would have been a better one. So yes, I'm sure they will lawyer up. But again, I don't know. I just have this eternal optimism. I believe in that future that's going to come. I do believe that the good guys win in the end. I just do. I think the right thing will always happen in the end. Like I said, the cigarettes are a great way to look at that. Are they still working to try to addict people? Of course. Vaping is a problem, but it's still not as widespread as smoking used to be. And I think everybody can agree that it's addictive, it's a drug, and it's bad for us. Now we know that vaping causes something called popcorn lung, which is causing teenagers to need lung transplants. It's more deadly, more quickly deadly, right? But yes, so there'll be pushback, there'll be lawyers. I'm not a soothsayer. I don't know exactly how that's all going to go. But what I do know is that you can't deny the science. And we've now had decades of research that's all just piling up and piling up. If those of you who like to watch and learn about this stuff, I have multiple videos that I've done recently, one looking at the twin study and talking about the impact of it. I've talked about the research that's been done that shows how meat and dairy affect your longevity and cancer and diabetes and autoimmune diseases. And recently, the newer studies showing how processed foods, one serving of processed food a day, that's dramatically increasing risks of dementia by like 30%. You know, 2 servings for dementia, 30%, 1 serving for dramatically increasing your risk of dying from all causes, which sounds exactly like the research they did back in the day on meat. So I do a lot of videos summarizing this research in a way to help people really understand it. But again, over and over again, it's piling up that processed foods, I don't like to call them foods, processed foods, put quotes, air quotes around them, meat, dairy, all that stuff. We know that it's bad for human health. And it's not just weird docs like me saying it or weird chefs like you saying, I'll put us in the good weird together, right? But it's just the wealth of science supports it. The World Health Organization has acknowledged it. It's just so overwhelmingly shown in every area that you have to really nitpick to try to find something to refute it. And people love to do that, especially people who are really into eating their meat and everything. But you know, you can't push back against it and make it wrong. It just is right and it's true. And I mean, I've helped thousands of people around the world reverse diseases that they were told they couldn't cure. You know, I recently was working with a man in Italy who's 89 and his kidney function was in the 30 percentile. And the doctors told his daughter, stop trying to fight for him and accept that he's going to die and say goodbye to him. He's 89. And instead, she made him go on my protocol. They worked with me. And in 2 months, his kidney function was in the 80s. He more than doubled his kidney function, got out of kidney failure in 2 months at 89 years old. right? You can't refute that. That is real results in real people. And I could do that all day long. So I just believe firmly that good will win, and the truth will win. And maybe it is, who knows, maybe how Representative Raskin, maybe he found out about the benefits of nutrition because he got cancer and it made him research it. I'm not sure how we got into that, right? But eventually the truth comes out and we're seeing it in real time. And the wheels of justice move slowly, right? So it's in real time, but all these different initiatives are happening at the same time. The ones asking doctors to learn, urging doctors to actually be board certified in these areas, the plant initiative to help farmers, the initiative for plant-based eating in hospitals, in prisons. All these things are all happening at the same time. And so the momentum is in the right direction, even if sometimes it feels like things aren't moving at all. So I want to give that layer of hope for people. That's what I was thinking we could do for people today, because people are very, disappointed, and I get it. Like when I first learned about the health impacts of being, meat and dairy and all that stuff, I was a resident and I had thought I'd been trained in everything I needed to know. I mean, being 200 grand in debt and giving up my entire 20s to become a doctor, to just find out that maybe kale is a solution to most things, and maybe I could have been saved. Like the information about dairy and cancer and stuff happened when I was a kid, and meanwhile I was living off of cheese. Maybe my kidneys wouldn't have failed if I had known that, right? So it is very frustrating and disappointing and depressing when you first find this out, because most people have lost the people they love the most to foodborne illnesses. Heart disease is the number one killer in this today, where people are losing the people they love. And it is entirely caused by diet. And it's still something that, when you wake up and you hear that, you go, oh my God, I might not have lost my mom or dad or sister or brother or aunt or uncle, grandparent. If we had known this information that's been around for decades, it's upsetting. And it makes people feel betrayed. And I think that's also a reason why a lot of people who become plant-based or vegan, they stop trusting anything the government says. I think that's part of the problem we had so much difficulty during the pandemic, right? Is a lot of people who are already vegan, plant-based are like, I don't trust anything the government says, because they're not even telling the truth about food, right? But if I can give some hope, then I feel like that is one of my purposes in my life, is to show that there are silver linings, that there are rainbows and storms. And to me, just this little bit, I'm not even done looking up all the research. This is just what I found so far, looking for initiatives around food right now happening in the past decade and currently in nutrition in the US government. It's very good. It's in the right direction. Now, how long it's going to take these initiatives to become laws, I don't know. It also probably depends on the next election, honestly. And we're not going to get into that. I'm just saying the next election probably will have a major effect on which direction things will go in. But, I do believe that it is going in the right direction. And I do believe the truth is coming to light, whether it's on Netflix or whether it's in the House of Representatives, whether it's in JAMA, whether it's in Frontiers magazine. We're seeing more and more of that truth. More and more doctors are coming to me, either asking me to train them, asking to be a part of my program because they're sick, right? I mean, it is changing in that positive direction. And so if I can give some sunlight to people today who are feeling like it's nothing but clouds, that was my hope, to be able to do that.
That is fantastic. That's incredible about your elderly patient. Imagine if you went into like nursing homes and did your program, or just have them just add a green smoothie to the protocol.
I had someone once, this was years ago, she asked if I could help with her mother-in-law who was in a nursing home. She was in a nursing home because her rheumatoid arthritis was so bad she couldn't move anymore. And so they would literally hold the phone up to FaceTime so I could see her. And they got the nursing home, it was a small nursing home, to agree to give her the smoothies. And it was working. She was starting to move more. Her pain was getting better. And then the nursing home said they wouldn't do it anymore because the green smoothies was making her have more bowel movements, and they didn't want to have to change her diaper that often. And they stopped it.
Oh my gosh.
Because, fiber is going to make people go, which is good. Most of them in the nursing homes are actually taking stool softeners, because between the diet and the lack of activity, physical activity, most of them are constipated. So that wasn't so great. But yeah, it is really a shame that, you know, people are just filled up with pills and not with hope and not with good nutrition. And I have found even in older folks that they can get their health back, they can reverse disease. Listen, we might not get back to a factory reset. All right. You know, sometimes we have scars, sometimes there's damage that's done, but they can get better. And it shows the body's actually never really given up on its ability to repair itself, but most people have given up on their body. And so, you know, share, I encourage people to share this video if you know someone who's sad and depressed vegan, but also share the hope and the good information, and be the role model. A lot of times people are like, how to inspire people? Do it yourself, be a role model. Have other people ask you, why are you looking so good? What'd you do? That's what someone in my group was writing that. I saw multiple people in my group yesterday, we're in the second week, who said people come up to them and said, wow, you're looking really good. And I only saw you 2 weeks ago. What are you doing? I'm like, that's how you transform people. You don't lecture them. You just eat well and look good and do your thing and be part of that change and let them ask you. When people ask you, they're ready to hear the message, you know?
That's amazing. Do you have time for a couple of questions that were
Sure.
sent in advance, Dr.
I have
Goldner?
time for a couple in advance. People were anticipating.
Well, they're not on this topic, but when people know you're on, we get lots of questions sent in.
Okay, sure.
All right, thank you. Well, we talked about this before you went on because I wanted to make sure this was something you talked about, which was shea butter. And so the person writing in, Jean, said that when you talked about it is good for as a body lotion. Anyway, she said she bought some and it was grainy and lumped up and flaked off her dry legs and made her bathroom floor into a slip area. Do you have any suggestions?
I have to show people how to use it. You know what's funny is my mom, she bought it and I didn't even know, like, she didn't ask me about it. She was listening to one of my Wellness Wednesdays and then she bought it without even saying anything. My mom, like, basically lives with me. She lives in my neighborhood. I see her every day. We work out together. And she goes, oh, I got it and it was bad, so I sent it back. It was just a big rock. I'm like, no, that's how it comes. So this is how so shea butter, natural shea butter, comes as a big rock, right? It's if I'd known in advance, I would have brought it out here to show you. It's a big rock. It's a slimy rock. Okay. What I do is I have this little spoon. It's like an espresso spoon. And what I do is I just scrape the top of the rock, just scrape off little slivers. And then I put it on my hand and I do this. And I do this until it turns into an oil. You got to warm it up until it turns into an oil. It takes a few seconds. You got to heat it up. And now it's liquid, kind of like, you know, coconut oil is solid at room temperature and then liquid when you heat it. Well, shea butter is even more so. So once it's fully liquid on your hands, that's when you apply it. And that way it's not just you're sticking, I'm just imagining this poor person like grabbing a clump and trying to stick it to her leg and it's like falling off and then it melts on the floor. And I don't want you to fall in it. No. So yeah, you rub it until, I'm going to have to do a demo video one day for all of you who keep asking me about it. You rub it in your hands until it's a liquid and a little bit. It doesn't take much. Like I literally scrape a tiny bit on a spoon, like less than a teaspoon. It's a little bit goes a long way. Stick it on my hand and then rub it till it's pure oil. Then I rub it into my face and my neck and my hands and all that. So that's how you do it. And then that'll work for you. Yeah, it should come as a block. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
Sure.
And the next question is from Anonymous. And she said that a dear friend of hers transitioned from the standard American diet to a plant-based diet 5 years ago and has been struggling with chronic anemia, muscle, and weight loss for the past 2 months. She started making your veggie smoothies 2 weeks ago. Could you please provide any advice or words of encouragement?
Well, first of all, I'm glad that she's switching to a plant-based diet. So the issues that she's describing are not issues that are caused by plant-based diets. So let me just put that there first. I've actually helped a lot of people whose anemia went away, right? So sometimes when people have an issue, the first thing they do is believe that the issue is caused by their diet. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's nothing to do with the diet. So first I'd want to find out what's the cause of the anemia. Without seeing the person and their labs, I actually can't figure that out, right? Because do you have an anemia because you're not taking enough B12? Do you have an anemia because you're someone who's iron deficient? Do you have an anemia because you have a hemorrhoid bleeding? I don't know. I don't know. But eating plants doesn't make you anemic. So that's just an important thing to know. Okay. Number two, weight loss is generally a good thing, especially if it's fat loss, right? Now muscle loss. So that's one that this one gets me a lot, and people, you can watch a lot of videos I've made on this because it's a thing here. Okay, don't make me take my coat off and start flexing for you. But you don't lose muscle from your diet. The reasons people lose muscle. Okay, here's the reasons people lose muscle. Number one is because they're not using them. All right, muscles are use it or lose it. Your body will make you as strong as you need to be to do what you do. The reason that I am very strong is because I work out in the morning and lift really heavy weights. All right, this morning I was doing chest presses, squats, all this stuff with weights. So that keeps me strong. Okay, if I stop doing that, then my muscle tone comes down and then I just look thin. But the moment I start working out, they bulk right back up again, right? Use it, lose it. So most commonly what happens is when people switch to a plant-based diet, they actually start losing body fat. And when you lose body fat, it reveals whether or not you have muscles, right? So if you have bigger arms because you have a lot of fat on your arm, then you're eating plant-based, you're walking, exercising, and you start to burn the fat off. Now your arms are smaller, right? And if they are flat and skinny, then people go, oh, I lost all my muscle. No, you didn't have any. You lost the fat, which revealed that you have no muscle, right? So number one is just lack of use. Number two, people will have loss of muscle caused by things like steroids. So if you take prednisone chronically, it actually causes breakdown of muscle tissue. So sometimes people have lost it because of that, usually both being sedentary and prednisone. Now, the only dietary reason somebody would lose muscle is starvation. The reason is because if you're starving, your body will break down your own tissue to try to find food for you. So my husband was just reading me an article yesterday about a man who was morbidly obese. He was over 400 pounds. And the way he decided to lose weight is his doctor supervised him and he just didn't eat for a year. A year. And all he did was drink water. And the fascinating thing was water and some vitamin pills and electrolytes. The fascinating thing is he didn't develop any diseases from it. Why? He was living off his own tissue. At that weight, his body was actually able to eat its own tissue and provide enough, blood sugar that he didn't starve. Now, if Chef AJ or I did that, we'd be dead very shortly. We don't have enough tissue in our body for that. We don't have body fat for that, right? So the point is, if somebody is starving, like if sometimes people say, oh, I'm doing your protocol, and they're drinking like 1 cup of smoothie and then eating nothing else the rest of the day, you're starving. I've never said to do that. I said, add the smoothies, eat more fresh raw foods, right? All of that. So my guess is if it's only been 2 months, your friend is adjusting, there's some detox going on. She might be losing some weight that she needed to lose. Body fat's always good to lose. But there's no muscle loss unless she's sedentary or taking prednisone, or she just doesn't like her food much, so she's not really eating. Also make sure that she's eating enough, because a lot of times people don't realize that when you switch to eating plant-based, usually you need to eat more often. Meat and processed items, they kind of sit in the stomach for a while and just rot there. And people feel full longer. But a plant kind of goes through our digestive system and leaves. And so sometimes we go, oh, I feel so weak, because they're trying to eat 2 or 3 times a day when really they were hungry about 2 hours later and they could have had another smoothie or salad or something. So eat enough and then find out the cause of the anemia. I can't do that without a lab test. With a lab test, I can look at certain numbers and predict, oh, it looks like this could be an iron problem, a B12 problem, something else. But eating plant-based will not cause those problems and likely will solve those problems. And if she wants muscle, she got to earn it. She got to go work out and earn it.
Fitness in the gym.
Yeah, people want to eat their way to muscle, and it drives me up a wall because people all the time are like, I'm eating protein shakes because I need to gain muscle. Are you working out? No. You can't gain muscle then. You're just getting fatter. That's all you're doing. I know someone who did that. I knew this couple. It was drove me up a wall. This guy, he got extremely sick, and his intestines actually ripped from diverticulitis. He was in his 40s, and he ended up with a bag on his chest, right? So that they could heal his insides. He should have died, but he survived it. And so because he couldn't really eat during the whole healing process and everything, you lost a lot of weight, right? Not eating and starving will do that to you, right? They had like a tube in his nose for a while, whatever. So he lost a ton of weight, and he did lose his muscle. You know, he had some muscle, he had glutes, he had some arm muscle, all that was gone. So he turned into someone very skinny and frail looking. When they put the intestines back together, he had told me he was going to eat healthy from then on because he learned his lesson. AJ, can you even guess what his first meal was when they reattached his intestines?
Oh
Think
my
of what's
God.
the worst thing you could think of.
McDonald's.
It was Taco Bell. There you go.
Well, close. I was close. Okay.
Chalupas with the cheese and the fried shell. I was like, he's gonna kill himself. So anyway, he was put on the protein shakes by the doctor, and he bragged to me when I saw him that he gained all his weight back. And I looked at this poor man, and he still had the skinniest arms, skinnier than mine, skinny legs, no glutes, but a panis of a belly that just hung down over his pants. Just a panis, just a thick flab layer. And he was happy that he gained all his weight back. And I was just like, you didn't, and his doctors too, they're like, oh, you did it, you gained the weight back. And I was like, no, you can't, it doesn't work. First of all, the protein shakes are inflammatory and they are processed, and he wasn't working out. So all he did was gain a bunch of fat, which now puts his health at even higher risk. But he made himself into an obese, skinny person. He has a giant panis and then skinny arms and legs. But the doctor said, good job, you gained all your weight back, and made him feel good about it. Like, oh, I did it. And he actually even said to my husband, look, I gained all my weight back and I don't even have to work out as hard as you. And Tom just looked at him like, he didn't say anything. He just, you know? But that's the thing. So people want to just eat and gain muscle. It doesn't work. You have to eat, and then you do the exercise, and then that your body sends that nutrition into the muscle. But if you're not using the muscle, it just will store it as body fat for later. Oh, just in case we ever starve again, let me put that into a good fat layer. So if you ever starve, we can live off that fat, because fat's a great storage mechanism for the body. It can store that energy for later. And that's one of the reasons that happens whenever people starve, like dieting. When they starve, they end up losing their muscle tissue because the body will more readily digest muscle tissue for blood sugar than fat. It's easier to break down. And then when they gain the weight back, they gain it as fat, which is a better way to store store energy for long term. But aesthetically, we don't like that. And fat also stores more inflammation too. So just be careful, all of you who've been told you're too skinny, you need to eat more to put on weight. If you want to put on weight and you're going to eat more, you better be hitting the gym, or all you're doing is adding belly fat, adding butt fat, adding leg fat, and that's not making you healthier. Stop looking at that number on the scale and start looking at what you're doing and what you're eating, and that's going to create the healthy body.
Absolutely. One quick question before you go. Janet, who's watching live, wants to know if you, Dr. Goldner, personally eat before you work out.
I don't. I work out first thing in the morning, and if I work out on a full stomach, it makes me really nauseous. So there is no right or wrong on this. You can work out after you eat, or you can work out fasting. For me personally, if I eat breakfast and go to the gym, I feel nauseous. I just can't do it. So since I go as soon as I wake up, I might have like some tea or coffee or something like that. And sometimes nothing, but I just go and work out first. And then after I work out, then I come home and then boom, get to my smoothie, stuff like that. So yeah, I just personally, I can't do it. Yeah, it doesn't feel good. We're running or lifting. I'm like, whoa, I just.
I hear you. I hear you. Well, this was great. Thank you so much, Dr. Goldner. And next month, you'll be back the Monday before Thanksgiving. So maybe you can give us a pep talk about that.
My Thanksgiving tips. Look at that. Yeah, no problem. And I hope truly people found this uplifting. We'll see what the YouTube comments say. But, I understand the not trusting the government, but let's give them good energy. Let's give them good energy. Let's give them like the right encouragement, to keep up what they're doing. And be a part of this change. And hopefully, like in our lifespans, we will see the changes that we in our lifespan have seen with cigarettes. Right? Okay, I started in the 70s, but I still saw it. In the 70s, everyone was smoking. And now they're not, right? I think it's happening.
So there is hope.
Yeah, there's always hope. I mean, the lack of hope is what the definition of depression is, lack of hope. And I refuse to ever give up hope. I refuse to ever, because that is our guidepost. That's what gives us the motivation and energy to move forward in life and to keep trying and to keep doing things and to keep waking up and to keep showing up. There is always hope, and it's real hope. It's real hope because there are real people out there who are trying to make a difference. So we have to applaud them, encourage them, write them thank you letters, all the people that I mentioned, and spread the news that there is hope and that this is happening. And, oh, I love when people have talking points. Whenever people say like, oh, well, there's just as many people who say that meat's better for you, this and that. First of all, that's not true. But you could be like, really, if that was the case, why are there government initiatives happening right now promoting plant-based farming and plant-based eating? Ooh, right? You got a new talking point. So that might help all of you at Thanksgiving.
I love that. Depression, the definition is lack of hope. That's a good one.
It's the truth.
Yep. Makes sense.
Well,
Makes
good
sense.
to see you.
Same here, and happy Halloween, and I can't wait to see your new photos.
Oh, they're coming soon. They're coming. We're working on them.
I can't wait. Thanks, Dr. Goldner, and thanks to all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back next Tuesday, November 5th at 11 a.m. for Straight Talk with Dr. Doug Lyle. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.